Yo, what's happening, Raider Nation? It's your boy Soto here. You know what it is. Raiders versus the world. Talk about a team that the world loves to hate, your Las Vegas Raiders. All right. So, me and mainstream media don't really get along too well, due in large part to the fact that mainstream media really doesn't, give the Raiders a fair shake. They either repeat the same narrative over and over on different platforms, different channels, different forms of media. And it's not always, well, let me rephrase that. It's not normally positive. So when I see guys from a mainstream media source talking about the Raiders within a more of objective view, I tend to pay attention to it. So Conor and Albert Breer from Monday Morning Quarterback gave their assessment of the Raiders as far as the improvements over last season, what they are, how they will help, and what their chances are of doing better in the following season coming up. So we're going to take a look at that. But before we do, I want to make sure everyone please like, comment, and subscribe to this video. It's an excellent way to support the channel. It's absolutely free to do. And it's the bare minimum you can do to support the channel besides doing absolutely nothing, just watching the video. Guys, this is like a rarity for me to really put out some other guys' stuff out here, but it was pretty objective. I think it was a little bit of a low ball. I think we're going to improve a little bit more than what they're saying. But go ahead and take a listen to this. And let me know what you guys think.
Vegas Raiders team at 4-13 last year. They have the ability to improve their win total over last year better than almost any team in the NFL. Like I would put the 49ers in that boat. I would put the Patriots in that boat, and I would put the Raiders in that boat. But like the Raiders, I put them right in there, like 4-5 wins. So we'll start the conversation there. You bring in Pete Carroll, which I thought was actually a really smart hire once you had to pivot away from the Ben Johnson sweepstakes. And the thing that I liked about the Pete Carroll thing is the all-star staff. And again, I've been tripped up by this before. I mean, you can go back and read what I wrote, that I thought Frank Reich put together one of the great staffs when he went to Carolina, and that there was no way this thing was going to miss. And it turned out there were a bunch of disjointed parts who didn't know how to work together, and the team was also awful. And so all that stuff combines into, really bad situation. This is a little bit different because I feel like these are all kind of old dogs who know the deal. And Pete Carroll's only on I think a 3-year contract. It's a shorter term contract, probably trying to pave the way for whatever's next. Maybe it is Chip Kelly. Chip Kelly's on offense. Retaining Pat Graham on defense, I think, was huge for them as a defensive coordinator. So you set the table for that. Then you get a vet at the quarterback position who trumps anything you could have done with Gardner Minshew again this offseason or with a rookie.
Yeah.
You draft possibly the most electric offensive player in the draft at number 6. He falls into your lap. I don't know, Albert. I mean, what are you looking at?
Like I think one thing that I like about where they're at. So first of all, like I think the play for the Raiders this offseason was like I think they wanted to reestablish credibility. And like with Brady coming in as the owner, and I think what people haven't paid attention to with the Raiders is how Brady brought in these other big money guys, right? So there's Mike Meldman, who is the founder of Discoveryland, which for people who don't know, that's the company that built the Yellowstone Club. So like big money. And then Egan Durbin's the name you hear a lot in NFL circles. He's the CEO of Silver Lake. And Tom Wagner, who's Tom Brady's business partner in Birmingham City. So like I think the Ben Johnson story, I'm sure you've heard it from me, right? But the Ben Johnson story is really instructive in kind of explaining what is happening there. In that Ben Johnson and his agent basically went through potential suitors in November and December and looked at it and said, okay, here's who we're gonna kind of pick and choose who we interview with. And then they kind of got ahead of it and told certain teams like, hey, don't bother we don't want to embarrass you. Just don't put a request in. We're not going to interview you. Right? We're not going to interview with you. So they did that with the Raiders, and then the Raiders came back and said, well, wait a minute, like, let me put you on the phone with Tom. And so they put him on the phone. They put Ben Johnson's camp on the phone with Brady, who basically explained to Ben Johnson, like, look, like this is going to be completely different. And after about an hour and a half on the phone, all of a sudden now Ben Johnson is interviewing with the Raiders. Now they didn't wind up getting him, but I do think a big piece of that was we're not going to be a cash poor team anymore. We're going to have resources. We're going to pour into the organization. We're going to pour into the football operation. This is going to be a whole new thing. And I think it wound up being an intriguing job to coaches because of that, because this is like being on the ground floor of something. And I think that's how you get Pete Carroll. And I think the reason why you get Pete Carroll is because you are trying to establish that credibility that this is a new day there. So you're not like taking some wild swing on someone where you don't know if it's going to, you know what Pete Carroll is. And then and then to take it to another level, you're paying $6 million a year to get Chip Kelly from Ohio State. Well, that shows that it's different too, because the old Raiders can't do that. You know what I mean?
Right.
The old Raiders can't spend that much on an assistant coach. So I think so much of this is about establishing credibility, getting yourself back up to a point where it's like, we can be competitive week in, week out. And to your point, I think like when you draft Ashton Genty, I think you sort of, and you have Geno Smith there now, like you sort of like, okay, like can we create a formula now where we can compete week to week? And I think you can, like, which is classic Pete Carroll run game, like, and Chip Kelly's really good in the run game, like a run game centric offense that is leaning on its defense to win games. And then we see if the defense is good enough to do that, but they've added pieces on defense too. And I look at it all the way around and it's like, this can be a good competitive team, now I think 7 wins is probably like a realistic, like if you can get to 7 wins and you look good at the end of the year, it's a good place to be. But I think this is a team that could be a pain in the ass to play against.
Here's optimistic for me. 7 or 8 wins. You beat the Chiefs once.
Yeah.
Which again is a big if, but they almost did it last year.
On Black Friday, they were, I was going to say, like, that was like, right down to the wire, right?
Yeah. And it's not like this is out of bounds, but it's like a clinical win over the Chiefs. And
the problem is you play them in week 18, which means you might be playing against, who's the Chiefs backup quarterback now?
Isn't it Gardner Minshew?
Oh, right. Yeah.
So it'll be a revenge game. That'll be fun. Yeah. For me, here's what I think or hope for Pittsburgh, for Las Vegas. The similarities between this and New England are apt because New England kind of has a lot of old salty dogs in the mix that they needed just to patch holes on the roster. So look at this Raiders defense. Jermaine Pratt from Cincinnati, Landon Roberts from Pittsburgh, Jeremy Chin from Washington, Eric Stokes from Green Bay, Devin White from Houston/Tampa Bay the year before. And then I didn't notice this, but did you know that Jalen Smith is on this team? Like the Cowboys, Jalen Smith from Notre Dame. Hasn't played since 2023. Well,
I remember like he was mounting a comeback, but I didn't remember he was there. So, but yeah, I mean, like, I think if you look at it and you say, I mean, you can talk yourself into this pretty easily. Maxx Crosby's the top of the league player. You've got a franchise type of weapon in Brock Bowers on offense.
Mm-hmm.
You have now, and I think it's always like, to me, like one of the underrated things is having a great running back and a great tight end, because a running back forces the defense to come up, and who's running behind the defense is the tight end. You know what I mean? Like who's running down the seam, like past the safeties who come up to defend in the running game. I think that can be a really great thing. If you've got a running back you got to pay attention to, and then a dangerous tight end like Brock Bowers, you can talk yourself into this being like a pretty decent team pretty easily.
And I think it starts with, and we've kind of used this with a lot of these teams, but we're talking about optimistic/realistic. So you're depending heavily on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5 free agents. I'm not going to put Jalen Smith in that fold there, but 5 free agents on the defensive side. I mean, Notre Dame guy. I love Jalen Smith. I love the fact that he. I love the fact
you're talking about Stokes, Chin, Roberts, Pratt, and White, then, right?
Right, and if let's say 1 or 2 of those guys becomes the equivalent of, and I'm going to date myself slightly, but when I used to cover the Giants, they traded a 7th round pick for John Beeson. Then John Beeson ended up being like the captain of that team for 2 years and like an anchor on that defense. He led the team in tackles, right? Like this is possible that one of these guys does it. And so imagine, and Jeremy Chin's a good player. All right. 7 or 8 wins for the Raiders, I think is reasonable. I mean, let's get to just very quickly the situation here at running back. I mean, what do you call a what do you call a realistic, optimistic expectation for Genty? Is it like, I look at let's say
1,200.
Bijan Robinson is the last true back of that caliber to get picked that high, and he didn't crack 1,000 yards in his first season. Now, there was a concerted effort there to utilize him in the right way, and you had Tyler Algier, who could take a lot of the hits,
And Algier
and then
was
Bijan was your change of pace back.
I mean, you could argue, I think that first year, like Algier might have been the better pure running back. You know what I mean? Like that.
Right.
So, I mean, Bijan was like, did Bijan go over 1,000 scrimmage yards? He did. Yeah, he did. Okay. So he was well over 1,000 scrimmage yards. So I'm looking at it here. My math is going to be a little sketchy, but yeah, he was over 1,400 scrimmage yards. Like, I think like, the thing about taking a running back that high is that I think that they almost have to produce right away, because the shelf life is short. And, I think part of the logic in taking a running back that high is that you're going to get a chunk of the prime of his career on his rookie contract, because they're going to get there faster. Now they're going to flame out faster, but like Ezekiel Elliott won the rushing title as a rookie, I think. Right. And then won it again in his third year. Todd Gurley, I believe, was Offensive Player of the Year in the NFL in his third. No, he would have been a little further along, but I think he might have won a rushing title pretty early on too. So, I mean, there are great examples of it. I think Saquon had a huge year early on too, didn't he?
He might have had a good rookie year too.
So, I think the point is, like, you're looking for production earlier. And like, I think that's part of it. Part of jump starting this team is that, like, you drafted somebody 6th overall that should be able to get to a Pro Bowl level pretty quickly.
I mean, if he puts up, so Barkley was 1,300 rushing yards, 11 touchdowns, and then look at this, 91 receptions for 721 yards and 4 touchdowns. That is unbelievable.
He was over 2,000 scrimmage yards?
2,028 yards from scrimmage, yeah.
Yeah, so there you go. I mean,
is that the optimistic, realistic bar? Because they're saying that, because Genty, I believe, is the highest drafted back since Saquon.
I'm pulling up Todd Gurley. Todd Gurley had almost 1,300 scrimmage yards despite missing 3 games. So, like, and that was a guy who was coming off of an ACL, I believe, right? Like, when he was a rookie. So, like, yeah, I mean, I think it's realistic to say, like, he should, like, if you're talking about, like, yards from scrimmage, again, like 1,400 yards, like, you should expect big things from a guy at that position you're drafting. It's not like drafting, an offensive tackle. And it's like, well, he's got to get his playing strength to a point where it's at an NFL level, or, a receiver or a corner where it's like they got to adjust to the speed of the guys on the other side. Like, this is generally a position that translates quickly.
So, okay, you hit on a few free agents, you win 7 or 8 games, Ashton Genty becomes a stud. I mean, I think that's the playbook for the Raiders.
All right, a lot of good stuff there. I think it was a pretty objective view on the Raiders and what they're expecting and what they're hoping. I think we all can realistically say that Ashton Genty is probably the best running back prospect since Saquon Barkley, just all around. And him having 1,200 to 1,500 scrimmage yards is not out of the question. And him having a season like that with a offensive coordinator like Chip Kelly and a quarterback like Geno Smith and weapons like Brock Bowers, you can get a lot out of a player like an Ashton Genty. So there's one thing there. Like Conor Orr was saying, you don't have to have every one of these free agents become superstars. You have solid guys. These are all solid players. You get 1 or 2 of them to really break out, then you really got something there on defense. Because look, one thing that people are overlooking about this defense wasn't just bad because they had bad players on it. That wasn't the case. They were bad because they were injured, and they had key injuries, long-term injuries, season-ending injuries in every level. So one of the things we have to take a look at here is this: not only are we getting people coming in, not only do we have draft picks coming in and all that stuff, and we have free agency and all that, but we're also getting a lot of players back that missed big chunks of the season last season. So this defense is going to be a lot different than what we saw last year, because we didn't really see the whole defense out there. I think the 7 to 8 wins is a little bit I don't know, conservative. I really do think this is a 10-win team, 10 plus, depending on how things go. Just to give you an idea, games in the NFL are close. Even if you're a bad team, even if you're a team that doesn't have a real starting quarterback, that has, a pretty bad head coach, that has a really badly injured defense, the games are still tight. Let me just give you an example here, okay? These are one-score games. One of the games is not a one-score game, but it was a very low-scoring game. These are the scores of these games that we ended up losing last season going into the fourth quarter. This is when quarterback play and coaching and having a good defense and stuff really comes into play. Just take a look at this, okay? The Chargers' first game, it was 9-7. We were losing 9-7 going into the fourth quarter. Kansas City's first game, we were down 17-13 going into the fourth quarter. Very close game. Against Miami, it was 17-12 going into the fourth quarter. Denver, the second game, 16-13 going into the fourth quarter. Kansas City's second game, 16-10 going into the fourth quarter. Tampa Bay was 14-10 going into the fourth quarter. This is the anomaly here, but it was a very low-scoring game. It was Atlanta. It was 12-3 going into the fourth quarter. And then the Chargers' second game, it was 20-13 going into the fourth quarter. These are all tight games. These are all winnable games. These are all reachable games. And that is with the league's worst rushing attack, with two backup quarterbacks trying to fight to be your starting quarterback, a defense that was riddled with injuries, a head coach that was in over his head, an offensive coordinator who was gone by week 5, I believe it was, and then a couple of guys that came in with loose parts in Turner trying to pick up the pieces. A lot of things were going bad for the Raiders last season. And look at those are 8 games that were within 1 score going into the fourth quarter. If we just win half of those last season, we're an 8-win team. So they're saying with all these improvements done with the head coach, with the quarterback, with the defense coming back healthy, with all the weapons that we have on offense now, with the new quarterback and offensive coordinator, with all these improvements, we're just going to be a 7 to 8 win team. We were almost a 7 to 8 win team last season with a couple of breaks going our way. I really do think this team is going to be a double-digit win team next season. All right, guys, that's my time for today. Really appreciate you guys watching. Go ahead and like, comment, and subscribe to this video. Excellent way to support the channel. It's absolutely free to do, and it's the bare minimum you can do to support the channel besides doing absolutely nothing, just watching the video. Guys, comment, let me know what you guys think. How many wins realistically do you think this team, with all the improvements and what I told you about last season and the close games going into the fourth quarter, what do you think the win total is going to be? All right, guys, everyone, you guys are doing great. You guys are killing it. Please make sure, tell your friends, tell your haters, tell your mamas, tell everybody. Raiders versus the world's greatest and going to Raider Nation today. All right, guys, it's my time. Until next time, everybody. Peace. Hey, Raider Nation. Thanks for watching. There's plenty more where that came from. Go ahead and smash that like button. Drop a comment. Make sure to subscribe and share to all your socials. It's the bare minimum you can do without doing absolutely nothing.